So you've just filed your PCT application. First off, congratulations. That's a huge step. But now what? If you're a founder or an inventor kind of staring at that application number and wondering what the next 30 months are going to hold, well, you've come to the right place. In this explainer, we are going to break down the entire journey from this exact moment all the way to a granted patent.
You hit submit, you get that application number, and then crickets, right? It's a super common feeling, that sense of stepping into this really complex process without any idea of what to do next. Trust me, you are not alone in feeling this way. And look, I get it. The whole journey from that PCT filing to actually holding a granted patent can totally feel like you're walking into a maze blindfolded. Every country has its own rules, its own deadlines, and let's be honest, when you're busy building a company, the last thing you need is a messy patent process.
But what if you had a map? Well, that's exactly what this is for. We're going to turn all that uncertainty into real clarity and control and guide you through that maze, step by step. Okay, first up, what really happens right after you file? A lot of people think this is just a long, quiet waiting period, but that could not be further from the truth.
Well, it might feel quiet on your end. The clock is definitely ticking. That silence is totally misleading. Behind the scenes, your patent is moving through all these different evaluations and waiting periods that are going to shape its entire future. Understanding this flow is absolutely key to planning your next moves. So, how do we make the most of this time? It's all about reframing it. Instead of a waiting period, I want you to think of it as your strategic planning period. This is where you can build a massive competitive edge. Think about it. Your PCT filing basically buys you up to 30 months before you have to start the really expensive process of filing in individual countries. This 30-month window isn't just for waiting around, it's for preparing, and what you do during this time can make all the difference. And this slide just lays it out perfectly, right? There are two ways to look at this time. If you've got a passive mindset, it's just a placeholder. You kind of wait and see what happens, which almost always leads to scrambling, higher costs, and a total loss of control. But if you have a strategic mindset, this becomes your planning period. You use this time to prepare, and that leads to control, confidence, and a much, much smoother process later on. So what does using this time strategically actually look like? Well, you get crystal clear on your business vision, and you pinpoint the markets that really matter. You analyze what your competitors are doing to build a stronger moat. And maybe most importantly, you dive deep into your international search report. So many founders just skim this, but it's an absolute goldmine. It's an examiner's first take on your invention, and it shows you where you can strengthen your claims before you ever file nationally. It's like getting a sneak peek at the test questions before the exam. When you do all that, your patent strategy stops being this separate legal thing over here. It becomes fully baked into your business roadmap. Imagine walking into a fundraising pitch and telling investors exactly where you plan to file, why those markets are crucial, and how it all supports your growth. That's the kind of clarity that gets people really excited. Okay, so you've used that 30-month window to build a bulletproof plan. Now it's go time. It's time to put that plan into action. This brings us to our next stage, entering the national phase. This is the moment of execution. So let's just quickly look at the big picture here. It all kicks off from your earliest priority date. We'll call that month 0. Then around month 16, you get that super important international search report we just talked about. And then everything builds towards that all-important 30-month deadline. That's the point where you need to have your applications filed in most countries. The key here is to keep your national entry plans simple and super focused. First, you identify your core markets. This isn't about blanketing the globe, it's about getting protection where it gives you real business value. Then you map out your deadlines, budget for all the costs, translations, fees, all that fun stuff, and then you coordinate the filings so nothing is ever rushed. A calm, measured process is always going to save you money and a whole lot of stress. All right, so you've filed in your chosen countries. Now comes the part that gives a lot of people anxiety. Getting feedback, questions, and sometimes objections from patent examiners. I love this quote because it's so true. Examiners' objections often feel like roadblocks, but in reality, they are openings. An objection isn't a no. It's really an invitation to be clearer, to strengthen your arguments, to sharpen the story of your invention. Think of it less like a rejection and more like a dialogue. The examiner is basically asking, hey, help me understand why this is truly new and inventive. It's your opportunity to build an even stronger patent. Now, here's a huge trap you've got to watch out for during this back and forth, something called claim inconsistency. As you make these little adjustments for different examiners in different countries, your claims can start to drift apart. This can seriously weaken your overall protection. The key is to make sure the core meaning of your invention stays the same everywhere, building a unified, rock-solid patent family.
And that brings us to the most important point here. Your response to an examiner should never be just a legal formality. It has to be a strategic business decision. Every single word you write should be aimed at protecting what's most valuable about your invention, always with your future product roadmap in mind. So you play the game, you navigate this process country by country, keeping your claims consistent and your responses strategic. And all of that leads us to the final stage of the journey, turning that application into a real, tangible asset.
And then it happens. After months, sometimes years of this strategic back and forth, you get that notice of allowance. This is such a massive moment for any founder. It's the official validation. It's the point where your idea, your sweat, your innovation is formally recognized and becomes a real, enforceable, defensible asset.
But here's the thing. That piece of paper, that's not the finish line. In fact, the grant is not the end of the story at all, not even close. It's the start of your rights. This is when your patent gives you actual leverage with investors, real strength against competitors, and total clarity with your partners. It becomes the foundation of your company's long-term value and its competitive moat. Which really leaves us with one final thought. After you've navigated this whole process with a clear plan, the ultimate question isn't just whether you have a patent or not. It's this. Is your patent just a document, or have you actually built a fortress that's going to protect your business for years to come?